In this video, I'll be introducing you to the graphing functionality on your TI-84 calculator. So if you're watching this video, I'm assuming you know how to turn on your graphing calculator, you know how to do basic things like add and subtract, divide and multiply. Alright, so what you are here for is to learn how to graph and see various things on a graph. So for example, if you want to graph a line, if you want to graph a quadratic or a polynomial of some sort, or you could even graph other types of functions, logarithmic functions, exponential functions. You may or may not have learned about all those types of functions yet, but once you know how to graph on your TI-84 calculator, you can graph from very simple to very difficult. So let's begin. So anytime you want to graph a function, you want to go all the way to the top of your faceplate where it says y equals, and you want to click on that. And I actually was already clicked on that. To come out of that, I'll show you. In order to come out of that, you go to second, quit. To go back into it, you go to y equals. So second quit gets you out, y equals gets you in. All right, so once you are in y equals, you can graph a function. So I want to graph a line, equation of a line, y equals mx plus b. In this case, I'm going to graph y equals 2x minus 1. So I go to y equals 2. In order to get my x, I click on this button, which gives us several options, but the x is what will show up. X minus, and it's very important to know that this is our minus sign, which you've been using forever, and this is still our negative sign. So 2x minus 1. Okay, so once our graph or equation is typed in, we want to graph it, so we go all the way to the top again, but all the way right where it says graph, and press graph. And your calculator will graph the function for you. So now if you know about graphing lines, 2x minus 1 does have a y-intercept of -1 and a slope of 2, and that is definitely the correct graph. So our calculator graphed this for us, which is pretty cool. We can graph easy functions, we can graph harder functions. So let's actually look at how we would graph another function on top of this one. So notice I just went back to y equals. I could delete this if I want, but I don't want to. I want to look at what two functions look like together. So if I want to see two functions together, I would go down to the next one, and now I can type another function in. So I'm going to type a quadratic function. So you may have started learning about quadratics or maybe finished learning about it. In order to type the function, let's just do a simple one. X squared minus 3. So I'm going to go to x, remember that's the x. Squared is here. Or I could have done x raised to the power of 2. But I choose to do less buttons are better, I think. Fewer buttons are better. So x squared minus 3, I believe I said. Okay, so now when I press graph, I'm going to expect to first see this graphed and then see that one graphed. So let's see what happens. So our line is still graphed, and now it adds on our second graph. So that is the second graph. The red one is the graph that I just drew. If we go back to y equals, and this is for the newer calculators. Unfortunately, the older TI-84s are not color-coded like this, but the newer ones will tell you, okay, the line will be in blue, the quadratic will be in red, and whatever I draw next, if I were to draw something, would be black, and then lilac and green, so on and so forth. All right, so there are a few things we can do here. So I want to show this to you because this is where the real use of this comes in. All right. One thing I can do is I can trace the graphs. I was going to say graph is, but there's no such thing. All right, so I can trace the graphs. So when I press trace, notice there's a blinking dot that comes up here. If I go from to the right, notice I'm following the line, and I can just keep going to the right, and I'll just keep following the line. Now, if I wanted to jump to the curve, what I would want to do is make sure I can see the curve. And so notice the curve is below the line. So in order to jump from one graph to another, instead of pressing left and right, I would press down to jump to the next graph. So up and down jumps from graph to graph. Left and right moves along that graph. All Alright, so that's one pretty useful thing. Another really useful thing is zoom and window. I prefer window, so I'll show you window first. Let's say I wanted to really just take a look at something really close. So maybe within this box, so -4 up to 4, and then -4 over to 4. Alright, so if I wanted to take a look at just that tiny piece of this graph, or of this coordinate plane, I would go to window, and notice right now it's saying I'm looking at -10 to 10 on the x-axis and -10 to 10 on the y-axis. I can change that. So I can say -4, and remember that is my negative sign. I go down and I say 4, and then I can go back and say for my y, I also want to see -4, and sorry about the noise in the background, to 4. And if I press graph at this point, look at the lovely thing that happens here. Now it's very much zoomed in. I'm looking from -4 to 4 on the x-axis and -4 to 4 on the y-axis. Now look at that. A little bit is cut off here. So maybe I should have said I want to look up to 5 on the y-axis. I can then go back to window. I can go down until I see y max because I want my y maximum point to be higher. And then I can put 5. Press graph. And now I can see the line first and then the quadratic next. And now I see everything. But that was a lot of buttons, and you might not like window because you have to really know exactly what you want to see. In that case, you might want to press zoom instead. And so in order to look at the window you were seeing initially, it's called the standard window. So you might want to play with this. So if you want to see the standard window, we would go to the 6th option. When we go to zoom, go to the 6th option and press enter. And now we're back to where we were before. We can zoom in. Let's see the options here. Okay. So we can zoom in, we can zoom out, we can zoom a perfect square, and we can just play with that whenever you have the feeling that you want to see more. All right, so I just have one more thing to show you. So these are our graphs. That's what it looks like. Let's say I wanted to see where the graphs intersect. So the blue line is intersecting the red parabola. That's what that shape is called. And if I wanted to see where the graphs intersect, I could go to, and this is just one thing I'm showing you. There's so many cool things I can show you that are similar, but I'm just going to show you one for now. In order to see an intersection point, I could go to second, trace, but that's really saying calc. So second, calc. And now I'm going to the 5th option. So as you can see, I've been scrolling down to the options I want, but I could actually type 5. So that's a little cool tool that you can use. So 5, okay. So here you will see it asks first curve. So it's really just saying, are you on the first curve? And you are, because remember you graphed that line first. So just press enter. No need to do anything but press enter. Then it says second curve, and as you can see, you are now on the second curve that was graphed. So you can just press enter, no need to do anything. Now it says guess, and it wants you to guess where the point of intersection is. There are 2, and it's going to give you the coordinates for the closest one. If there was just one intersection point, it would give you the coordinates for that one. But since we're close to this, it will give you the coordinates here. If I just press enter, it tells you that our first intersection point is -0.732, comma, -2.46, approximately. So what would we then do if we need that intersection point? We would go through the same steps. We'd go to second, calc, intersect, which is option 5, first curve, just press enter, second curve, just press enter. But when it says guess, you want to make sure you scroll as close as possible, and my calculator takes a while to scroll because it's on the computer. So a little bit of patience, there we go. A a little closer, try to get it as close as possible to that intersection point. And once we're there, we can press enter. And then it tells you the second intersection point. And the second intersection point up here is 2.732, comma, 4.464. All right, so that is how you find an intersection point. There's other points you can find, but this is where we're going to stop for now. If you want to see more, you can watch my other video where we focus exclusively on looking at the quadratic. All right, that's it for now.